Dog trials.
The what?
Dog trials. That's where they take border collies and sheep are way.
I actually have, there's a location out in Mecklenburg County that I have seen that before.
Yes.
Okay, I love rare dogs.
We're
Oh, yeah.
live. Okay, y'all are. We're live.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm Nancy Randall, Chair of the Fairview Planning Board. And I am convening and calling to order this June 15th, 2021 meeting of the Fairview Planning Board. We will begin with a roll call and determination of quorum. So Teresa, would you please call the roll?
Doug Buchanan.
Here.
Bill Thomas.
Here.
Nancy Randall.
Here.
Tony Hills.
Here.
Christy Black.
Here.
Josh Presley.
Here.
We have 6 members present, so that is a quorum. So we can continue with our official business. The first item that we have tonight is to review and then potentially make a recommendation on the flood damage prevention ordinance, which will ultimately replace our current ordinance, which we adopted back in 2018. Ed Humphreys, do you want to speak with us about that?
Thank you.
Ed.
These mics are preset, so don't have to be up front very close to me. Yes, I appreciate Nancy reminding me how easy this was to read and understand, and I appreciate that.
It's a model ordinance. We like that part.
In 2009, the town of Fairview passed their first flood damage prevention ordinance. It was necessary due to, number one, we didn't have one, and number two, the FEMA insurance was not allowed to be purchased unless it was passed. So now our residents can buy flood insurance because of this ordinance. We do have 7 people actually having flood insurance. I thought it would be more than that, but the ordinance was updated, and our ordinance was, the original template was updated by the state, and our ordinance was amended on August 13th, 2018. The other day, I was audited by the auditor who audits towns in North Carolina, or this section of North Carolina, and reviews their floodplain permits. I did not know there was such a review or audit of that type of thing, but there is. He came, and I was very pleased. I did real well because I only had one, and that was Piedmont Natural Gas, where they put that pipeline in the floodplain, and they had to have a permit just like everybody else. So, but riding around, he saw another one, which he questioned, and like I said, we're working on that. Now they're getting very particular about floodplains and floodways. Floodplains, we all understand, it's dedicated right for it, but there's certain areas that are floodways or areas where the water can go out of the floodplain into a certain area, which is called a floodway. So, and it is marked too. So, the auditor did ride down the street, and you know, the young man who's put some dirt on a field that he bought from the Hadrons right down here next to the farm on 601, right across from Windsor Green, right at the creek.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Well, the auditor rode by there,
Something.
and he
Didn't like it.
questioned that because he thought that dirt pile was in the floodway. Well, I did not know that. If the floodway is this area, let's say here's the floodplain, and here's the floodway. This is where water goes over the floodplain and goes and stores if there's a blockage of some kind. If you put debris or anything in that floodway, that reduces the floodway area that you can have water on. So I'm working with this young man, and he understands the problem, and he's gonna have to remove the dirt and debris on that lot and turn it back to the way it was. And then he's gonna have an engineer to show me, or a surveyor to show me that he's not disturbed the floodway.
So if you don't mind if I ask a question right now, just so I can understand floodway a little bit more. Do we have those marked on any way in our,
GIS with county.
so we are able to,
They're on the FEMA maps too, I think.
I mean, I'm sure that's what Doug was trying to show us, so that a property owner should know if, or could know,
Could, probably.
could,
I didn't much pay attention to floodway up
Let's-
until recently.
well, based on last year, I understand why everybody pays attention.
Yeah, I think that's the big one. Well, here's your creek. Like this. And everybody knows the floodplain is this area.
Mhm.
Well, the floodway is, that's not right, is it? Would say 2 feet this way, back to this way, here. So the water goes here and then here, okay? This is out of the floodplain or floodway. So here's.
So it has to do where the water goes in overflow. It doesn't necessarily have to do the water going into the drainage area.
Now, that's another problem. You can't do that. But, he did take down some trees. Here's the floodplain, and there were some trees here that he took down. But there's still some trees over here too, so, but he owns a lot like this. So so what he did was he piled some dirt here. Well, that eliminated the floodway, or space the floodway is in, so.
It's going to cause more flooded downstream. Okay, thank you.
So the ordinance this is the one that's up to date as we could get. And he recommended us to do that. We didn't have to, but he recommended it. He also recommended and we did in this ordinance, we took the state recommendations where they were optional, we still took them. Okay, so you may have seen the template where it says, well, this is optional, but it's a good idea. We took the good idea.
Mhm.
So what I would like to do is have y'all discuss it and recommend it to the council that they update our ordinance. So there'll be a public hearing at the council meeting and I'll tell you about another little permit I have. All of a sudden, I'm having flood permits, and I've never had it before. There's another man that bought his property. This is a floodplain here, floodway is about like this, his property's like this. And he gets to his property through the bottom of the creek.
Say that again?
He accesses his property in the bottom of the creek.
He drives on the bottom of the creek, which you can't do anymore.
So he has 50 acres over here, which is now a farm. So he can do one of two things. He can have culverts here and dirt and building a road to access his property, right? He has to have the Corps of Engineers okay with that.
so.
He has to have the state okay with that. And he has to have our ordinance complete. What he's doing is he's buying a flatbed rail car.
Making a bridge?
Putting that rail car right here. Yeah, without the wheels, of course.
I would think he want to go the 2 feet above, so he'd be right there at that special flood zone.
He'll be above the.
I mean, the railroad car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The what now?
Railroad car, because if you had railroad car below your floodplain.
It's going to
or-
flood.
Yeah, you're backing up water, so it's gotta be,
It'll have to be higher than that.
yeah.
So the water can escape.
This company, I didn't even know there was a company that did this. The company said they would put it on dirt too, like they just lay it on the dirt here. You know. I said, no, I don't put it on the dirt. I want to get concrete
Pilings.
here to put. This also, I had to convince him, and I had to tell him several times, he said, I can fill out the permit, I know all the numbers. I said, well, I don't care if you know the numbers or not, I think that's great, but I want an engineer to sign off on it. So he's gonna have detailed plans on this.
And that will
Specs.
comply with the
That will
new
comply with the
ordinance to
ordinance.
essentially have a bridge.
He will have a bridge. My first question was, will it hold a fire truck?
That's a good
Good
question.
question.
Yeah, what is the weight limit
Well-
for that?
It's, I don't know what the weight limit is, but it's pretty high,
Yeah.
80,000
Should
pounds.
be.
Is it wide
I
enough?
have no idea.
Is it wide enough? Good question.
Oh, there's an end.
It's 10 foot wide, and it'll hold a fire truck. So me, being smart as I am, I call the fire marshal. I say, Kevin, will you let a fire truck go over there? He said, believe it or not, that's okay. As long as there's one house up here.
As long as what?
One house, it serves one person. If it's a lot of people, then this has to be one.
For ingress and egress of a fire, an emergency vehicle, I guess.
There's more houses over here, you wouldn't want a two-way also.
You would think
Right.
so.
Mhm.
You would think
It's
so.
just interesting the way that, but our ordinance, as Doug will tell you, and he said it was very, very complete. There is an application and a permit. We charge for the permit. So it's very, very complete. If you do anything in the floodplain or the floodway, you gotta have a permit.
As long as you know it.
Heretofore,
Well,
I
that's
didn't even
a
allow
good
people
question.
to build in the floodplain. I said, no, we don't do anything in the floodplain. I don't care which one. And to my knowledge, there's not any house built in the floodplain, I don't think. There may be some outbuildings, which is fine, that have been here for a while. Interesting. The ordinance is a good one. We've gone through it and made it ours. So it's complete. And I know it's hard to read and understand, but we think it's complete and the state does recommend it.
Did the auditor look at this?
He said,
He sent it to you, right?
I just changed the.
Right, customized it,
Changed the name, right.
customized it.
Change the number of names and check, save through state.
Yeah.
Right. So essentially, this comes to us as a recommendation from our staff. And I wonder if we have any discussion of the flood damage prevention ordinance by any member of the planning board.
Since the state's recommending that we adopt it,
Well, I
Looks like
think any
something we should
engineer,
do.
I won't say Doug's name out loud. Any engineer could probably go through it and disagree on some definitions, maybe something else, but yes, it is as complete as I think. Most towns won't have that complete. One, they don't need it, because they don't have any floodplain. But we happen to have, river creeks that do have a lot of floodplain.
since he ordered you, Ed, I think it's a good idea that we adapt what he,
Thank you. So you're making that as a
I'm making
motion?
that as motion.
Thanks, Tony.
Madam Chairman?
We'll have a discussion afterwards. Do we have a second?
All right.
Do we have a second?
Sure.
Thank you, Josh. Discussion.
All right, the one thing I did was I went to FEMA's website and I looked up the definitions and pretty well very similar.
Okay.
The one thing that they had for special flood hazard, I thought would be good to add, and it just take out any doubt. It was
What page are you on, or
Oh, this-
where would this go?
this would go, oh gosh,
Somewhere in the ordinance.
yeah.
That you will tell Teresa and.
Okay, it would be on page
about-
11 for special flood hazardous area.
Page 11, everybody.
Yes.
Special, it would be an addition Oh, there's
Yes, it
special
would
flood.
be
I see.
one additional sentence.
Okay,
The SFHA is in the area where the National Flood Insurance Program, floodplain management regulates must be enforced.
say that again, please.
Where are you?
It's on
Actually,
page 11.
page 11, it's a special flood hazardous area.
Which is SFHA, and you're adding a sentence to the end, you're recommending a sentence to the
I'm
end?
going to recommend a sentence that the SFHA
What is
must
that?
be regulated.
What is the
Is it not regulated
SLHA?
with this ordinance?
Well, it implies it, but it doesn't really come out and stomp them in the face. And this came right out of the feds, so.
Yeah. And you say the state may have disagreed with them, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, basically, that's what we're doing, we're regulating that area.
But what is the SLHA?
Special flood hazardous area.
But that's SFHA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Science is brain, so I meant to say SFHA.
Okay, that, the sentence that we're talking about, what's the next series of words?
Must be regulated. Is that what you said?
Yeah, basically just must be regulated.
By whom?
Well, be regulated by this ordinance.
I interpreted it to be, and we've already talked about it, I've interpreted it to be it's already regulated. By the ordinance.
So should I put
But
by
here
the
again,
ordinance?
he's looking at it a little stricter than I am.
The SFHA, which is this section we're talking about here, must be regulated by this ordinance. Any further, do anyone have a comment on the proposed amendment to the ordinance? Is it regulated in the ordinance?
Well, we have two different bids. I think it's already clear. He wants to make it more clear. Is that right, Doug?
That's correct.
Where is other
I
reference?
will, I will accept that. That's
You will
no
accept
problem.
that?
Yeah. I'll just add it to this if it's okay with y'all.
Well, that's what we'll have to vote on an amendment.
But if you all let me recommend it and get it done, I'll do whatever.
Get it done.
Does anybody have a question about the amendment? So Doug is recommending an amendment to this proposed ordinance that adds a sentence to the end of special flood hazard area to say the special flood hazard area must be regulated by this ordinance. And Ed can live with that. Is that a motion to amend?
That's a motion to amend.
This proposed ordinance, like to stick something on? Does anybody have a second to that?
Second.
Thank you. So the first thing that we need to vote on, is there a question about the amendment? First thing we do is we vote on the amendment, this wording here. So for a show of hands, please, all those in favor of the amendment to add the line, the special flood hazard area must be regulated by this ordinance to page 11 in that section here, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? So the amendment is included into this motion that we have by Tony and seconded by, I think, Josh, or the original motion to approve this. Do we have any further discussion of what's going on in here? I'm appreciative of the auditor that came and did this work. I'm appreciative of you for updating it.
I didn't know there was such an office. It's been in 10 years.
Right, well, and it's amazing that they're trying to catch up
Getting
on,
around.
catch up with things after COVID. They're glad to see people.
Well, he did mention too that he does not have a problem with small towns usually. It's the
Yeah.
big towns that have problems.
Yeah.
Because of, he said this, he says, I'll be honest with you, it's because of politicians. You know, the mayor's friend who lives in the floodplain. says
They make
he wants to do
exceptions.
this, And then they make exceptions.
Yeah,
You know.
that's,
I got a question.
yes, Bill.
Um, Here, I'll go on pages number 4.
Page number 4.
Article 3, it says, go down here, it says, Section A, lands to which this ordinance applies. And that goes over to,
Page 9.
go to Section 3, Article 3, that's on page 12. I've been on the page, Section A, lands to which this ordinance applies. This ordinance applies to special floodplain areas within this jurisdiction. So that means the map, where's the map now? Is it a county map?
Is this
It's a
one?
FEMA map.
FEMA map.
We're not sure that's fair.
Yeah, that might be Indian Trail, but it's gonna be a map like that.
It's the FEMA maps that have been approved by FEMA.
And where is that located now?
It's now, you can go online
Okay,
and actually see that.
in FEMA website?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It's not the easiest to find, but it's there.
Okay.
Now,
For Fairview?
For Fairview.
Another way that's not maybe as precise, or, if you want to get the general description, is our GIS, our county GIS. And you can go on the county GIS system and pull up your lot, and it'll show whether it's floodplain or not.
It's always been the same,
Should be the same, but here again, you look at a map that is on GIS, it's not precise, it's not,
what is the precise one then?
surveyed.
You'd have to have your property surveyed?
If you want to be precise about floodplain and floodway,
And where would
you
the
get a
survey?
survey, he goes to the maps and he verifies
He
it.
goes
And he
to,
puts his seal on it. It guarantees
he would use what maps?
the FEMA maps.
FEMA maps. Okay,
So the FEMA maps are the key.
and that's the FEMA map there.
Mhm. Happens to be of Indian Trail rather than Fairview, picked up just the wrong one, but
So
it's
it's like-
representative of what those kind of maps look like, as I understand it.
Yeah,
As I understand it. See,
so it's the NC thing.
pass it down. Go take a
Great
look at it.
question. I used to have
Good, really good question.
individual maps.
I got them,
Yeah, here, and I still have,
right, but they're over.
but they have been changed a little bit.
What's the same satellite?
Not much though. You'd be surprised they haven't changed much, but they have changed. a little bit.
That's a really good question. Thank you. Do we have any other questions or discussion on the we've added the one line to the flood damage prevention ordinance, the non-coastal regular phase. Are we ready to vote? All those in favor of this ordinance as we've amended it, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any with like sign? Please say aye. Thank you. Any opposed with like sign? Thank you.
I think it's a great one. It's an update to.
It's an update.
It's above everybody else, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, next item of business. We worked, last time we met I don't remember where it was. I don't remember where I was back then. Sorry, folks that are watching us on YouTube. I don't quite remember. We discussed major and minor subdivision requirements, and I'm going to come back to that. And it's toward the end of
Page
the,
31.
page 31.
I have listed, I think, what y'all told me or what we discussed at the time we discussed. And I think they're very good. We discussed the water and sewer. We discussed that the public utilities must be underground, stormwater management, open space, sidewalk on one side of the street. But we got down to street connectivity. I think that was needed in minor and major, depending on what the street layout. Then the street trees and street lights, I would like to recommend we say the same thing as needed in the design of the subdivision. Some subdivisions don't need street trees, others might. So that would be something that this group would review as recommended or as needed, if that's okay. Streets to be built to state standards. Then we have HOA, and here's another one that all minor subdivisions maybe don't need HOAs. Covenants they usually use, but not HOAs.
You said all minor?
Yeah, and this is, we're talking about
I mean,
major.
Major, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
It can be a major with 6 lots too.
Yeah,
Uh, how many lots, or how do you determine if you're gonna require or suggest homeowners associations? I would think you would say, depending on the subdivision and common areas, things like that, provided on the map. If you don't have any common areas, probably won't need any homeowners association. Now, let me give you an example. You will see one next month. It is, and Doug's already seen this, I emailed him a copy of this. It is one that you,
You're the sounding board.
I know.
I'm the one with Joe on, so
sort of, the founding board.
That's good. I'm
I
all,
appreciate that.
don't we all appreciate that?
Oh, yeah.
Very much.
Very much.
Nice to have an engineer on
That's
staff.
exactly right.
It really does give me great ideas.
Yes, we appreciate it, Doug. We do. We're not making, we mean it,
We
we
really.
mean it honestly. We mean it honestly.
To get your second check, right?
You don't even catch it,
Here's the subdivision. Here's the street.
Hmm?
Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then there's a lot right here. Now, the difference in this lot, and you think, well, there's no access to it. Well, there is. There's a little access to it. Come this way. There's a pond on it. Now, there's 6 lots and 1 pond lot. Well, the owner wants to eventually give that pond lot to these people. She didn't have a use for it. Right? So they gotta figure out some way to maintain it. You can't do that in covenants. You just can't do it. Now, she's gonna have some covenants. For example, a covenant would be all houses have to be 2,400 square feet. No manufactured homes on the lot. Things like that are covenants. But this is a pond. Like the park pond up there. Anyway, great lots. The septic fields and all the lots are here. You know, we've had them,
Yeah, that's a good thing.
we've had them everywhere, you know, as you know, and I've stopped that. I hope all I can do. And the houses are gonna be here. But this is a state maintained road, so the driveways will be here, here, here. Now, should that have a homeowners association?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think so. HOA. Now, it only has 7 lots. But if it didn't have that, would there be a need for it? No, I don't think so. Okay, how about streetlights? This is in the middle of the country. There's farm and big houses all around it, farm, and we need streetlights. Streetlights. What is it? It is light pollution.
Yeah, I don't see why it needs streetlights. If it's not gonna have sidewalks.
Yeah. Now, she's gonna mandate street trees, one in the front yard, and here's a house. One in the front yard and 2 in the back for some reason. I don't know. That's just the way
When she wants
to
it,
do
right?
But that's what you'll see next week.
Okay.
Look forward to
So
that.
how long do homeowners associations,
25 or 30 years? Is that what you're saying?
that was the question. Yes, how long sort of is their durability in terms of, they typically expire, correct?
They typically expire 25 years. After 25 years, I mean, it may not make any difference. You know, whatever's gonna
It
happen.
won't to us anyway.
Good answer, Josh.
Probably not to most of these people. It won't make any difference. You're gonna buy a tree, well, the tree's already, it's gone.
So my only question about that was, if it expires in 25 years, why do we insist that they maintain it now? If in 25 years, that pond probably is still gonna be there on that land, like what difference does it make? Can anybody help me understand that?
That's a good question. I've not seen that, but
What?
the way it's taken care of after the homeowner association. I have seen where they just continue to do what they're doing.
I was gonna say, have you seen where a HOA has dissolved after
I have,
25
my
years?
parents
I have.
lived in a neighborhood like that. After 5 years, it was a 55 and over community that was maintained. And literally 5 years later, it sold out to another builder. And
So-
somehow the HOA got completely overtaken. Now they have kids, everything has completely changed.
For the worst?
Yes.
Can the HOA have liability insurance for the pond?
Mm.
Sure.
They need it, I mean, but.
Sure.
Sure.
Mhm.
If they're smart, they will.
Right,
Mhm.
and the covenants couldn't do that.
No,
No,
this
that
would not do
that
that.
can't be, the covenants are dictated by, if you have a problem with the covenants, somebody in this group has to complain and take it further.
Civil.
So homeowner association has the authority to do it.
Right.
now.
Well, so in something that small, this might be an irrelevant question, but what percentage, let's say they wanted to change something, what percentage of, I mean, if it's 7 people, I mean, you have us, how many people would actually be able to vote to make that change, I guess is a
Depending
question.
on the chart.
Half,
Depending on
majority,
the
or
contract.
2/3 or whatever.
If they say, if you want to change any of the homeowners association requirements, or whatever if somebody said, listen, I want to get rid of that pond,
Mhm.
I think it's a liability, I
Right.
have it drained. If I can get 3/4 of them
Mhm.
to do that, then they can drain that pond and use it as a park or whatever. But they own it on a homeowners association. Covenants, they own
Chrissy, how big was that neighborhood that your family was in?
Well, when my mom and dad bought into it, I guess there were maybe 15 houses.
1.5 or 5.0?
15, not many. I mean, it's a fairly small neighborhood. It's not large. And now it's maybe twice that many. But it just seemed like that everybody that was there was already 55 and older. So no one that was there would have voted to change that to
It
make
was
it.
when it expired, yeah.
And it wasn't expired yet. It was new. I mean, it was within 5 years of them buying it.
Oh,
So it didn't expire.
Mm-mm.
oh.
So I don't know, I mean,
Just
again,
didn't
this is in
enforce it.
Georgia, it's not in North Carolina, I don't know.
But if it changed hands, if the builder
Yeah.
changed hands in the middle,
That's the thing, like,
but you
if
would
you,
think the HOA would have already been,
it.
Established.
It's already recorded.
yeah.
it was already, so I don't know how that happened, but it does seem
Because it
like,
has to be recorded with the
Mhm.
first property owner, because then that sets the tone for.
Mhm, for everybody else.
I don't have a strong opinion on this. I'm sort of relying on other people. I think my lean was not to have homeowners association. But then I'm seeing now the importance of having one for areas, for developments, major subdivisions that have common area.
The common area is
So
key.
other than that, I'm not necessarily,
Yeah.
perhaps others are pro homeowners
Now, in this
association.
case,
No, I
is
agree
the
with
lake,
you.
or is the lake common,
The lake would be common.
The lake is given to the homeowners.
but not currently?
Not currently.
It's privately owned, and
She's
then.
gonna keep this for a while,
Mhm.
till all lots are sold. And homeowners, see, she's part of the homeowners association when this starts,
Okay.
because she's gonna be.
Mhm, She owns all the other
She owns
lots.
a lot.
Mhm.
So, but when it gets all sold, then she wants to turn that over to.
Hmm.
Which is common, I mean,
Mhm.
it could be a park, it could be a wooded area, it could be anything.
It's at least an acre. We know that,
It
right?
is,
Mhm.
I
Almost.
think it's about 2.5 acres.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
every
All the
acre is
lots.
40,000 square feet.
The smallest lot, I think, is acre, 1.2 acres.
Good.
But you'll see, I just wanted to give you a little preview, so you can look forward to it.
Yeah.
Is this something that we could handle and evaluate on a case-to-case basis until it gets to the point where we're having lots of subdivisions to where we need to put some sort of, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. If we can say, hey, here's, like you said to begin with, here's the map and this is what's happening here.
That's-
And determine at this point, if it's not too large, then we can sit here and we can discuss it. Now, at some point, it may get
Yeah.
above us.
You're right.
But then we can go back and we can reevaluate.
It depends on the common area.
Correct,
Like you-
yeah. Mhm.
Hopefully, I would have made that decision,
Yeah.
and they will have bought into it
Yeah.
before it gets to you. But you may say, well, we want to tweak it a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you certainly can.
Sure.
Hopefully, this type of thing helps me and the developer say, okay, what do y'all want? Because they're always interested, what do you want? What do you want?
Mhm.
And I think that we were asked by town council to
Yeah.
come up with
Something.
these guidance.
Right.
I think it's
Another,
guidance, correct? Am I right
Yes.
that this would be
Yeah.
guidance?
but I'm gonna
That's
put
what
it in
it
the
is.
ordinance.
Pardon?
I'm gonna put it in the ordinance.
Then that's not guidance. That's regulation.
Well,
And that's where the
And
streetlights,
I have- yeah.
I go back and forth.
I have not fully investigated that about how I'm gonna do that. It could be examples of what might be considered. Not
Right, we could have some that are required and then some,
some that are not.
Right.
These are examples of what the town is looking for.
Right.
Now, I mentioned
and these are
this,
required by the town.
and this, the ordinance is required. These are examples. Now, let me show you how that works. I said, you know, the town council mentioned something about, what are you gonna do for us? You know, what amenities are you gonna have? We're gonna have to start getting some amenities, something. The developer came back and said, okay, the builder and I will donate $500 each after each lot is sold to the park capital fund. I said, well, that's great. So you see how you can plant seeds,
Mhm.
not required, you know. But that's what she wanted to do. So she wasn't required to do that. I didn't force her arm or anything, but she said that's what we want to do. I suggested the capital park fund rather than the maintenance fund. You know, the capital fund. Like, if the town wanted to spend, this would be a designated fund.
Sure.
We don't have that now, but we're gonna designate one. And then if we spend capital expenditures over $5,000, so anything over $5,000 would be capital. And we could use that money.
Well, back to these requirements, I had a couple things I want to say. First, I thought we talked about broadband. And I didn't see any,
We did mention.
I didn't see any mention of broadband in here.
We don't have any.
Well, but
I think we talked about that and we never, I think that might have been where we
we got
stopped.
stuck.
We got stuck
You
in.
got stuck because of the cost.
That's right.
Well, the state, set aside some money, say right now, we as a small community and contractors, there's very limited we can do with broadband. We're kind of at the mercy of where we live and everything, but I was encouraged to see the state set aside some money. And I think this is one of the positives came out of our situation with the virus.
And I think you have to look at the subdivision as to where it is. If you've got a hole right here, it makes sense to pay that much to get everybody home. But if it's 2 miles away, then the best you can get a Frontier or phone or dial-up, whatever, that's the best you can get. She'll have it, it just doesn't work.
T-Mobile's come out with a hotspot, and I've heard people say that's better than what we have now in some areas. It's $60 a month, and T-Mobile has it, so.
I think technology is gonna get there, it's just not there now.
Yeah, fiber's being laid in a lot of rural
Yeah.
areas, a lot of electric utilities, co-ops. I mean, we're doing it with my business. I mean, all the time now we're having to put in our software to accommodate.
I think the town ought to partner with Union Power and put some fiber on it.
Good idea.
in my opinion.
Back to this.
Okay.
Bullet, point 1, public water and sewer if available with the 2 segments behind it. Available would mean within 2,500 feet, et cetera. If not available, well and septic. That sounds good. All public utilities must be underground. That looks good. Stormwater management to meet 100-year storm requirements. Is that correct?
I think with the ordinance we are recommending adoption, you can probably strike that.
Because the ordinance requires. Now, does that require, yeah, that's our ordinance that requires it.
Okay. 10% open space. Where are we with that?
I put a good idea based on the number of lots. If you go back here, where's the open space going to be? It's gonna be right here.
Sure.
I think the other thing is if you have some limitations to the properties just being in the flood zone itself, you're not gonna be able to build, that could be an open space.
Well, in this particular case, she's provided, she's just not provided now, she's looking for homes.
Right.
If that's recorded, that's a requirement. If she says it, she'll have to do it.
I've actually been looking at one of the ordinance down in South Carolina where it's not a if, and, or but, it's you will do this and it's going to be 15% and it's going to look like this. You're going to have so many trees. I mean, it's very, very restrictive, which makes it tough. Really tough.
Especially if you have one like this, you know, all face the road and just lots. Long term, that's not real good because you got property in here too.
Yes.
But that's what we want now.
Well, how about 10% open space in a development of 50 acres or more? What about something like that?
Right.
I just threw out a number, thinking that when you get that density of development is perhaps when you want to ensure the open space. I do think I know what Greg would say. He would say something like, but you're gonna have these leapfrogging, that's probably not the right word, sort of the serial, S-E-R-I-A-L development, the 6 lots here, then the developer comes back, puts the 6 lots next, and the 6 lots, and the 6. You get to 50 acres and you don't have any open space. So I understand the difficulty with what I just proposed.
When he goes to major subdivision, he's got to add the major subdivision requirements. So in other words, he builds 6, that's 5, that's a minor, he can do that. When he comes back and builds another 6 on the same property, that's a major.
Yeah, but what she's saying is,
Purchase another parcel.
they did 10 acres here, they kept them under the 10% rule, and then they do another 10%, another 10%.
So
And
what
next
do you
thing you know, they're at 60 acres and they
Yeah.
haven't given any percent.
I don't know whether I can control, I mean, we control that.
No, so I'm wondering if it needs to be in here, not just, it would be nice. Like, what do y'all think? I'm posing it.
I think that 10% is okay. And again, at this point, is it so big that if somebody comes back and say, hey, look, it's this, and there would only be 5% that we could make an exception or?
If it's a subdivision of 50 acres, the maximum houses you could build in that, probably what, about 40? Streets and all that stuff, infrastructure and all that, so, we're talking about number of lots, or it could be acreage. With this many, about this many lots, 50 acres, we want 2%. And that's doable. I think that's doable.
Well, I was just wondering now that I said that because of that leapfrog effect that we were just talking about, if we just want to say, if you're a major subdivision, this is a requirement. 10% of your property needs to be left as open space. It doesn't need to be, and I'm not quite sure if that prompts then the HOA.
Here is 12 acres.
7 lots, 12 acres.
It's okay. That's the minimum. But you got open space here that requires subdivision to maintain.
But I like that. I mean, I like that neighborhood.
That's more than 10% probably,
We are,
which is good. Or that's about 2%.
probably is.
So that works. But what if there wasn't What if there was a pond?
Was not a
Just a
pond.
lot.
I know that developer would want to put a house on it.
Mhm. Right.
But is that what Fairview wants? Or does Fairview want open space to maintain our rural character? A 2-acre open space is a nice set of woods. I think.
Contractor, what do you think?
What do you say?
I see both.
He's in construction, but he does apartments, not houses.
Oh, yeah.
But I see both sides. I mean, hey, if you're giving away 2 acres, that's a pretty good chunk of change.
So what's best for Fairview?
Think about also, you're developing the
Right.
subdivision, so
No, that's right.
maybe you don't want houses, like we're seeing on the outskirts of Fairview.
Yeah.
I just saw a thing on Stanley County saying that they're complaining that they were the worst doing these poster stamps housing in on this property. By requiring the open space in the forest, where it's got, maybe some water feature and whatever, I think you're eliminating that possibility and preserving the idea of what we want to try and maintain as Fairview.
I like that comment. I absolutely agree with that. I also think that if you're having these requirements, you're also looking at homes that are of nicer quality. They're gonna be nicer quality usually for a longer period of time. If the investment is there up front, I like that comment, absolutely.
What if each individual lot is a certain size, then you don't have to do that?
Oh, that's.
If you're saying every lot is 2 acres or bigger, you're maintaining your open field.
In my neighborhood, 2-acre lots are getting filled up with outbuildings,
Yes.
swimming pools. It's just
You would be surprised how many swimming pool
been
parks
in.
I do.
I bet so.
So the trees are coming down.
One way or another.
No, it fills up to the edges start to fill out, all the edges.
Even Bill Clinton, he wants to go to swimming pool. I don't know.
I got a water shortage. I need rain.
I don't know.
I'm just saying, but the 2 acres maintains, you're not gonna have the little postage stamp
That's correct.
neighborhoods.
Right now, we've got 1 acre,
Yeah.
lots in the middle, essentially. And once you put a house on that and your absorption field, which can't have trees in that doesn't work. Your 1 acre is gone. You don't really have any trees. But I understand what you're saying.
Well, can we try it and see what town council thinks? By adding in 10%?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, Josh, I know you're not excited about it. Can you live with it?
Yeah, no, I
Good,
mean,
okay.
I see both sides.
I understood what you
How
said.
about the road medians, would that count toward the open space?
I think so.
I think it should, especially if you have sidewalks.
So then we're going down to that next line, which is confusing to me. Curb, gutter, sidewalk. Then why are we saying curb if it's not required? For flood, what does it mean for flood requirements? I think we need like the indent under here, like we had under public water and sewer. I think we need some indents here.
If the state, if this is all coming down here, which it looks like it is, or it's going this way, you're gonna have to be careful about how the water flows down, so you're gonna have to, where am I going with this, Doug? You're gonna have
But you're going to have drainage easements.
nice, have it collect here and go down this way. But you don't have sidewalks, so you can't have, usually you have a sidewalk, but usually if you have a curb, you can put a sidewalk. But a curb along here might be a great idea, but that's a state maintained road. She can't do that, but she can do that.
Yeah.
Would be a road.
Yeah. So that, you brought up a good point, state maintained roads, so the state would have to give permission, would actually dictate where the curb and gutter would be installed, and even if the road is widened.
She says, the developer says that she has checked with NCDOT on these driveway cuts. Of course, I won't check again. Sure.
Yeah.
Because she said, oh, her daddy got permission to do it. Whatever. But I'm gonna check again, so I haven't got word back from them because I haven't. We haven't finalized it yet. It'll be subject to state DOT, right? You may have a question.
So we should just take that out?
Should we just leave it up to
Gutter.
the state? So
Should we just take out
it's a state maintained.
just have the sidewalk line rather than the curb and gutter? Because curb and gutter might be optional, right, rather than required, because we're trying to talk about what our requirements are here.
Well, the other question I have is, there are state maintained gravel roads, right?
Yes, I live on one.
So if you have that, you're not gonna go on a gravel road.
A lot of it depends on how I review the requests on training. It may never get to you, I may tell them they can't do that.
Yeah, but if we have it in writing, you don't even have to.
These recommendations,
Yeah.
and the recommendations. And if they can't work it, this recommendation can't work.
Right.
Does that make sense?
So you're saying this will go in the ordinance, and in an ordinance, it's not a recommendation?
Give you an idea. There are examples of signs. Like I say, this sign is
Yes.
called this, and it looks like this. We can even add pictures. This is what it looks like.
Right.
A lot of ordinances have pictures. I mean.
Oh, yeah,
That's a great tool. To say, well, do you not understand what I'm saying? No, I don't understand. It looks like this. Oh, okay. I'm saying that. So pictures help. So it may be pictures.
So this says requirements
Yeah.
for major
We're
subdivisions.
gonna have to be careful on requirements or options.
Right, so option could be curb and gutter. A requirement might be, I'm just saying might be,
You have to have a driveway.
a sidewalk on one side of the street, or is that also an option? I'm trying to move us through this list.
Yeah.
Depending on this, I don't think.
We get stuck on the same.
In
Yeah,
this,
the end.
in this subdivision, sidewalk is not reasonable.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Unreasonable.
Because it's not connected to anything. It would-
Curb, gutter, and sidewalk are recommended if feasible,
That's a good way to do
That's a
it.
good way. I agree with that.
right? So that can be an option, not a requirement,
That's a good way to do it.
right?
And then we get to decide if it's feasible.
That's right.
Is that right?
Each case is gonna be different.
Right. And those are the same things with, I think, this next one, street connectivity, depending, right? Street lights, depending, these are all options,
Right.
I think, based upon the case-specific situation.
That's right.
So how do you label that option to be approved, or how do you word just options?
I know how to guide. That's basically how it works. Hey, I want to do this. Well, you can't really do that. You can do that, but it would look better if you did that. It would be better receptive.
Received right back.
Received.
Yeah.
By the town. Because they usually ask me, you know, what?
Mhm.
Come on, what can I get through?
How do I get this?
How do I get this through? So what I want to do, how do I do it? So,
Well, we'll ask you to work on that language, because I think streetlights is under the same, because I don't think we're ready for this yet. I don't think it's quite there. Streetlights, we're gonna look at one more time, as needed.
Street
But one of our
trees.
requirements is streets built to state standards, right? We're gonna say that's a requirement,
Yes.
right?
if you build a street, it would be the state's.
Right, so that needs to be on the requirements. So bump that one up with the rest of the things that we're
It's not an
requiring.
option, it's required.
Right.
Yeah, that's required.
And then I think at the it also required, not an option, HOA. Well,
That's actually a dual.
pardon?
That could be considered a dual. If you have open space, then it's a requirement.
Yeah.
But it can also be an option even if you don't have open space.
Correct. Right, so that needs to be phrased as well.
Yeah.
So just sort of using those bullets and then those arrows, you see, just organizing it so that it's cleaner to read.
Let me work on it.
Okay, thank
I'll
you.
bring it back. Well, this is not a happy tomorrow. We can Just look at it in a couple months.
Are we good with that so far, everybody?
That's good.
And send, more input.
At the rate we're going, we'll have this ready by 2022.
Just in time to build. some
He's
apartments.
questioning my leadership on getting us having things done. We're trying.
Sounds good.
Sounds
And
good.
I think too, it helps me deal with the customer.
Yes.
Anything like this helps me deal with the customer. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, do you think they'll vote for this? Well, listen, I don't know, but do you think they will? Educated guess, maybe. So but if I know, like the big one we had last year, he came in, he said, do I have votes? I said, you don't have votes. It is not gonna pass. So we're gonna go ahead. Okay. You're putting us through a lot of stuff.
It was a good exercise for us, actually.
It was a good
I think
exercise,
it was.
because you saw something that you hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I think it was good for the
And you recognize
for the university. It's a story
By
about
the
the
way,
university.
community
No, it's good for us.
You mean community interaction?
I'll say, based on what I have seen, that ain't gonna work. It was unfortunate that both the planner and the couple of people let go of that too, because it let it pass.
Oh, wow.
Say what?
The planner that was doing it,
Lost his job?
and he probably knew it wouldn't pass, but he was working for the bank, so he was in charge.
Unfortunate. Okay, so we have,
I'll work on that.
thank you, we have one other thing on the agenda, and I would like to add one thing, if that's okay. Maybe before the minutes, can I ask a question of Ed? So, I thought maybe you would want to tell the group, because I'd ask you the question. A couple months ago, probably more like 3 or 4 months ago, we had some folks come in from the state of North Carolina. They were reviewing critical intersections across Union County, and one of the critical intersections is up where I live, Brief Road and 601. And the town council, they gave us 2 options. They presented both options. Ultimately, as I understood it, it was what the town council was going to recommend that would be perhaps what they were going to, okay, Ed is going to tell us. One option was
The
a bunch of,
Turn lane.
one was a roundabout and one was these turn lanes. So do you want to
We,
tell them?
The county wanted to put together, not all the critical ones, but the most critical intersections in the county, to recommend to the state that these be fixed either with state funds or a combination of local and state funds. Now, to do this, it puts these intersections on the radar of the state, so they know about it. It also makes us think about how we would like to see it. So we even had the mayor and the county transportation guy up at Hot Mess interviewing people, because they were right there. What do you think about that? The problem with this particular choice, if you will, you had 2 choices. One, to make the arrows a little bit better and make the turn lanes a little clearer, but that was about all. That was the cheapest option. The roundabout was another option, which was fairly expensive. Most people would think, well, why don't you just put a light up? Doug will tell you, I think, in his experience, that lights don't always, people run through lights. They don't, that's, in fact, they're actually worse.
For serious
The way
injury.
stop sign is actually safer than a stoplight is. But a roundabout, we've had experiences with a roundabout now for several years. And we got one for 218, and people did not think it would work. So the first person I called after that intersection was built on 218 was Bill Thomas. And I said, Bill, you go through that intersection all the time. Do you like the roundabout? Yes, sir. I said, what do you like about the roundabout? He said, it's less stressful. I thought that was a heck of a good answer. Hope you don't mind me using
It's
this.
still LA.
I go through it too all the time.
Great.
Mhm.
And so the county is wanting the elected officials here, because there were two choices offered by the consultant, to pick one of them that they would prefer. So they could tell the state, well, we identified these and Fairview's on board with this. So the elected officials did recommend the roundabout as their preferred. Now, when is it gonna be built? I don't know. But it's on the plans, like all the state, when you get it, you work for it, it'll be on TIP at some year, and then they'll probably come to us and say, well, how much is Fairview gonna give us? But that's our plan.
Thank you for that update. I wrote a very lengthy
You're welcome.
letter.
Maybe
right,
they'll bring my speed limits on.
I wrote to the town council. I'll turn it all.
No.
What I thought.
I'm teasing.
The state screwed that up. That's what they did.
Oh, I told you that. I told you, and I told you.
We
So
sent
dead
them
end signs, no speed limit signs. I'm like, well.
we got the ordinances passed. We
Just like
sent
they
it to
told
them,
us to.
just like I said, they wrote us back 6 months later after I complained, well, where are they? They said, well, you didn't send in the right ordinances. We did it again, they're trying to
No, I
check
just-
it.
They didn't like the verbiage, the state didn't like the verbiage.
She was on one of
Yeah,
the
and
few gravel streets in Fairview. So she loves it. No, it would be nice to stay there. But it didn't have a street on the side on it. It was never,
And so Amazon and all these people, which I was gonna actually mention when we were talking about this ordinance thing, because I'll tell you, Amazon and FedEx and UPS, they fly. And at one time I had to call the police. Union County came out and said, ma'am, if there's no sign, they go 55. And I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old that get dust blown on them
No,
quite frequently. And so it's not a good situation.
that's the reason in the last subdivision y'all approved, the street they built was paved.
Paved, yeah, that's a really good.
That's why we.
We learned.
Okay, our last item of business is our agenda. Excuse me, that is not what I meant to say. I'm tired. It's been a long day. I haven't even been home since 7 this morning. Approve the previous minutes from April 20th, our regular meeting. So I've looked over them, they look fine to me. Does anyone see any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, let's have a motion.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in discussion? All those in favor of approving the April 20th virtual meeting minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? These are approved. Any other business?
Did we recommend work? I got this caught up in that.
We did. We did. With that one amendment.
I knew that.
Right. What we didn't recommend yet
Okay.
were the requirements for major and minor subdivisions. That just still needs a little bit of editorial work. Is there any business that y'all would like to bring up for the good of the whole?
One of the things that I've been thinking about in my design life is putting plants in that promote wildlife, such as pollinator plants.
Yes.
Sell trees that, the hickory nut that doesn't, it's only trashy in the fall and stuff. Let that be part of what we recommend to the subdivision developers to plant.
Sort of like native species or environmentally sound species.
Yes, I mean, butterfly bush is great, it blooms all summer long.
Good.
Rose is too much of a hassle, too much work. But so, there is things out there that you can actually put and plant that promote wildlife and the bee population. The bee population is going bad.
That's right, it is, though.
It is, right?
Yeah.
I think those are really good ideas,
It is
and
a good
I'm
idea.
definitely supportive of that, so. And the better,
they'll grow if they're native to the
if they're
area.
native, to-
Right.
right, that's what we want.
Stick on my car, Navy.
Nice to have a real meeting, Jim.
It is nice to have a real meeting, isn't it? It is, it's great to have a real, really excited about that. Well, we have a motion to adjourn.
I motion that we adjourn, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say, clap your hands. Oh, wait, oh, rats. What?
Well, next month will be the last month that I'll be serving on the planning board, and I just like to say that I've really enjoyed working with each one of you, and some of you I knew before I came to the board, but I feel like I've met and made new friends and strengthened my friendships I had, so it's been a pleasure.
So before we adjourn, how about we make a public acclamation of support for Tony Holmes and the work that he has done serving the community of Fairview on this board and as our vice chair for a number of terms. So I make that as a public acclamation. Shall we all clap?
We should.
For that?
Yes.
Thank you, Tony. You're a good guy. But most appreciated. So,
Probably love Tony for more than anybody else in here.
What's that, Bill?
What's that credit on you? For more than
Oh,
anybody
yeah,
else?
all my life.
All your life. Couple years ahead of you,
Yeah, a few years ago. Yeah.
well,
next door.
this is a good group, as always. So all those in favor of adjournment, please stand.